Well, hello and good morning. This is Chris Dunn, and welcome to the Event Marketers Toolbox. I am here live and in person, right here. Look at I can touch her. She's not even on another screen. Dana and I are together. You know, we've got we're starting a little bit late. Things happen in this tech world, not always perfectly. But welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the show. I'm Chris Dunn with BlueHive, and this is Dana. Dana, tell us about yourself.
So I'm Dana Esposito with BlueHive. I'm the EVP of Strategy. I basically come from exhibit design, creative leadership, and corporate strategy. And we're here with Caleb. So Caleb, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name's Caleb, and I am the founder of Discomfort Custom Sneakers. And yeah, I've been customizing shoes for probably the last 7-8 years, and excited to be on the show with you guys.
Well, welcome to the show. We're going to do a little unboxing. We've been obviously teasing with some videos and some inferences about something that may or may not exist already. But a little backstory is I saw something about Caleb's company online a bunch of months ago. There was these kind of real quick like ASMR style videos that were really kind of getting a ton of traction. I kind of reached out to Caleb's company, inquired, hey, what would it take if maybe we can, work together? Maybe we can get some shoes made for the show. So I'm going to do that unboxing in a second. But first, before I do that, I wanted to just talk a little bit about our sponsors. So the first sponsor is BlueHive. Dana and I happen to actually work for BlueHive. We are a creative trade show and experiential agency. We like to think that we're kind of in that right size. We're not a small boutique, and we're not the big guys where you're only a number. We're 100 people strong, and we have a presence on both East Coast and West Coast. And we do almost all of our production in-house. So we are somewhat unique in that aspect, and super creative, great customer service, all the things there. In addition, the company that is actually helping us with the creation of this show is called Fist Bump, and Fist Bump is a partner of ours. They're a sponsor. They help not only executives and leaders kind of upscale their game with regards to social media presence, LinkedIn specifically, but they also do production and management of podcasts as a marketing channel in order to create content and basically build thought leadership. So we engaged with them. They're helping us put this together. And we couldn't be more happy to have them as a partner. And they handled the heavy lift when it came to figuring out, like, why is this platform not working right now? And luckily, although I did get a little stressed, they're the ones who fixed it. So all good right there. And without further ado, so Caleb, a couple of months, 6 weeks ago or so, reached out. There was a little bit of back and forth with our creative team with regards to some design ideas, but I wanted to do a little unboxing here. I'm going to try not to block out Dana, but it comes in a custom box, which is pretty cool. So you probably can guess this size of that box. It's not like a new car. However, we've got some custom shoes made by not yours truly, made by that gentleman right there on the other screen. Caleb, awesome job on these. Specifically, I had a couple of things that I wanted to accomplish. New Balance is a Boston-based shoe company. We are Boston-based also, so I love that aspect. And I just wanted to give you a little bit more of a palette to work with. So chose the high tops as well versus low tops. Just gives you a little bit more space, a little bit more canvas. There you go, Dana. You can have one right here. So, Caleb, why don't you talk a little bit about and we're going to kind of dive into it a little bit more, but if you want to give people a little bit more insight into, the shoes and like in particular working on this design as a whole.
Yeah. So, based on what you told me, I think you sent over like a screenshot of the event marketers toolbox. And I always love working with like bright colors like this. I think they contrast really well. So, and the other thing that I love to do is kind of incorporate the textures that are affiliated with the logo. So in your guys' case with the BlueHive, I wanted to incorporate that like hexagon kind of beehive texture on it. And then as well, you had mentioned that you liked that cartoon effect. So we kind of just pulled that from some shoes we had done in the past. And yeah, I just kind of laid it out. And I normally try to break it up quite a bit, so there's not like too much blue in one area, too much purple. We kind of break up the paneling so we can still see the rough shape of the shoe and stuff like that. But yeah, overall, it was super fun to bring to life. And I also love working with gradients. So I like that you guys had this gradient involved. And yeah.
There you go. That's a pretty good rundown. So I could see, in the videos that you helped create, and that's part of the service that you guys offer, is not only are you making the shoe, but you're creating kind of this social media package that's available to folks like us in particular. We're kind of using it to try to bang the drum a little bit and create buzz around our show here. But I totally envision also using it to kind of create a buzz around, trade show and or a corporate event. So obviously that's kind of what we talk about. We're a community of event people, from trade show side to corporate events to festivals, kind of all of that stuff. The other thing too, before we get started, is this is a live show, so feel free to kind of jump into the questions. We will be able to see them, and hopefully we'll do our best to respond and answer those questions as we go. So without further ado, Dana, why don't you take us where we're going?
All right. So Caleb, the first question, we're curious, what was the origin story? Like, what was the impetus that really led you to creating this company?
Yeah, so I can kind of thank my mom for that. Growing up, I really loved like shoes. I played basketball at the time. Sneaker culture is a big part of that. And I remember asking her for, fancy Air Jordans and stuff like that. But she was like, I'm not, spending $150 on a pair of shoes for you. I was like, okay. So then I started watching Rejuvenator on YouTube. And basically what they did at the time, they would find like old shoes you could get for really cheap, maybe $20 or so. And they'd clean them up with their products, and then they'd customize them. And then either they'd sell them from there or they would just wear them. And I thought that was really cool. So the very next day I went to Goodwill and found a pair of Air Jordans for $8. And I cleaned those up, painted them. They turned out terrible. I painted them again. And I probably painted those probably 5-6 times before I let them die. But yeah, and then I remember I actually used model paint on that shoe because I didn't have like the special leather paint at the time. And I wore them to school, and the very next day I did like a camo design. All the paint came off. So I came home and I was like, well, I need to get some paint. So I ordered that. Luckily, it wasn't too expensive. And then from there, my friends kind of saw what I was doing and started asking me to do stuff on their shoes. And at the time for my services, I was charging $20. And that was, I was probably working for like 8 hours for $20. So it wasn't the best money, but I was working with shoes, and I got to, see shoes I'd never seen before, and I was just having fun. And then I think one of my friends recommended I try selling them on Etsy. So I did like these yellow pineapple Vans, and I put them on Etsy. And it took a few months, but they kind of just took off from there, and I just kept making more designs, putting them on Etsy, and that's kind of what really grew the business. So
Nice.
That's a very cool story. So prior to that, did you fancy yourself as an entrepreneur? Had you done things prior to that? Like, did you have like a lawn service, or did you do other things just to earn money prior to that? Or was the shoe thing really kind of the Kickstarter for that?
I actually always loved buying and selling stuff. So even before this, I would buy stuff on Facebook Marketplace and flip it. And I just kind of did that for a while. I just loved kind of that aspect of the business. When I was even younger, I used to try to sell paracord bracelets. So I made those, tried to sell them. Nobody bought any of them. But I made probably 200 of them. So
okay.
Yeah, but
you got a box with those somewhere?
This was the thing that actually took off. People actually wanted. So it was just a matter of time. And actually, I had a pair of shoes that I sold, or I flipped on Facebook Marketplace to get me the money to buy the shoes for this business. So in a sense, that kind of led to starting this. So.
Well, it's obviously a passion, and it's very also an art form. Where did it, or how did it cross over from sort of your pet project to really also getting involved in corporate elements?
Yeah, I mean, so I was also really big into sports growing up, and there was kind of always that like conflict of interest, right? Like, where do I spend my time building the business or doing sports? But I actually ended up breaking my back wrestling, and so that kind of put me
Yeah.
out of sports for a while. And then 2020 hit, so everybody was at home, and so I had a lot of time to work on shoes, and that's kind of where it really blew up, and that's where I started seeing a lot of numbers on social media. Um, but even from then, it was more like working with celebrities or like bigger influencers. And it wasn't until about a year ago where a guy reached out to me and he was like, "Hey, I think this would be a really cool thing to bring to the corporate world." So I made a pair of shoes for him, and he just started talking, and then it kind of just domino effect from there. And that's kind of been our main focus ever since, because we've seen a lot of traction with it, and it just makes more sense.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a real cool story, and that's actually, it was Matt, no relation, but Matt Williams,
Yeah.
who was somebody that I followed, and when he started working with you, I was like, oh man, that's got some interest to it. So Dana, you're a designer, right? You look at something like this and you see kind of the craftsmanship that goes into it, and it's just really cool. I never would have thought you could do so much detail on such a small kind of canvas that has a lot of weird shapes to it. It's not a flat piece. It's
Well,
not easy.
also, I was checking these out, and they're very well done. It's even though,
Right.
But I saw your production video, and it's all done by hand, right? So I was even looking inside to see how you did the actual inside here, because you don't have like bleed over. It's not messy like the edges. It almost looks like done by machine. It's so clear, crisp. So.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we actually spray the both the fade effect and then the inside, because it's hard to get in there with the paintbrush. But so we remove the insole, and then with a little airbrush we spray it, and that also helps it stay better, because if you hand paint it, it might come off on your sock or something like that. But yeah,
Right.
It's taken a lot of practice, especially because like with the ASMR video, you see the tape peeling back, and I always get questions like, "Oh, how do you do the tape peels so like clean?" And all I can say is a lot of practice and a lot of messed up shoes.
Yeah, perfect. Well, I mean, you got a great kind of origin story, and starting with used sneakers and having to paint them a whole bunch of times, just kind of failing and learning and failing and learning and failing forward.
Yeah.
And then, here we are. I would imagine that if you think back to, a younger, Caleb in 2020, like seeing where you are right now and what you're doing, probably is pretty cool to kind of think about that journey and how that is all kind of, come together.
Yeah, and it's definitely cool to look back, because when I started, by no means I was expecting to do it full time. It was very much like, oh, this will get me more money so I can buy more shoes type of deal. So being able to do it full time has been awesome. But
yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
There's obviously our show itself is we're talking to event marketers, but we're talking to marketers specifically, right? So you think of all of the case uses for surprising and delighting clients, or just that over and above, like, how do I thank these, this client who just, put all their trust in me for a project of whatever nature. I think there's so many different ways that this kind of corporate gifting strategy and this customization, you can take it in a lot of different directions. Specifically, when I saw it, I was like, this would freaking be so cool and so awesome to do for our team at a trade show, right? So we're going to go, work the booth. We've got a theme, and then letting the custom footwear, or making sure from an intentional standpoint, making sure that these custom designs become part of the overall theme, and certainly the attire, right? We've all walked by a booth and we've seen people dressed with the same polo shirts, or maybe they're all wearing, a color-coded black pants, white shirt, whatever the case may be. Something like this obviously takes it to a whole new level. And for those folks who are listening to this on a podcast and they can't see it, just a quick description. You're the designer. Tell us what we're looking at here, Dinah.
All right, so this is a men's. It was originally a white high top New Balance sneaker, not a running sneaker, more like
basketball sneaker, yeah.
And New Balance, so it's literally the logo N. It's two color, so it's white. The inside is kind of like a plum purpley pink, and the BlueHive blue, which is a nice deep blue, not a navy, more of a royal blue. On the very, very back, we have our BlueHive logo icon. On the left side, where the little round bone on your foot would be, that always hurts like heck when you clunk it. It says Event Marketers Toolbox, so it is nice crispy text, which is impressive. Around the back, it actually has, because we're BlueHive and we tie into some obviously bee and hive theme, we've got a hexagon pattern, kind of like a beehive pattern. And so the color is very lively. When I first saw them, I was thinking like Run DMC a little bit for people who are my generation.
Of our generation,
but it's very good, pretty plum and a deep blue. And to Chris's point, when he was first talking to Caleb about this in the design process, Chris liked a cartoony look. So it does have like a black outline around a lot of the sneaker elements and some gradation. So they're very vibrant. They're very branded. So to Chris's point, it would be really interesting at a corporate event or a corporate trade show. Or as a gift for a client, because you could really customize not just like the size of the shoe, but the style of the shoe, and whether it looks very much like a brand or just someone's own personal brand, like their personality. They're very interesting. And in this day and age where, personalization is a really important thing to make someone feel seen and special and appreciated, they're really unique. And I think just the fact that they're also unique, it's harder and harder to come up with ideas that surprise someone, right? We're all kind of spoiled in the way of just the internet and Amazon, like everything is so easy to get and find. Like this is so unique. And when you have an artist like Caleb who can execute it so well, I think someone would be really impressed with it, because the personalization level is so high.
Yeah. So this is not a trade show exhibit. However, I'm going to draw some correlation lines between the two. Our process isn't all that dissimilar, Caleb. You're working with a kind of a set size canvas, as it were. They're leather, but canvas in an artistic sense. When we get involved with a client, we sit down, we do a discovery meeting, we go through goals. We go through what are your physical booth needs, tower and, storage for all your giveaways and a meeting room and so forth. And we kind of flush out all of the things that are important to our exhibitor friends. And then we set about, designing an exhibit using specific brand colors and iconic imagery that goes with it. So what you're doing has a lot of similarity to that, obviously in a kind of in a smaller, more compact sense. You've got to fit. We've sometimes got 400 square feet. We've got 1,000 square feet to do all that stuff. You've got a sneaker. You got two.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a tighter space, but you're having a similar conversation, right? Especially now that you're kind of working more in the corporate world and you're getting involved with folks who have a very specific, brand book. Here's our PMS colors. Here's how, the brand has to interact. It has to have X amount of space around it, right? So there's probably a lot of things that, although the corporate, going in the corporate direction has opened up your business considerably, at the same time, there's probably some more parameters and a little bit less artistic license that you have to kind of work in and around in order to do that. Is that a reasonable assessment?
Yeah, and I think it really depends on the brand I'm working with. I mean, I've worked with brands kind of like with you guys where you're like, these are the colors, but you kind of have artistic freedom. And then I've worked with brands that are very particular about even, the size of their logo on a certain panel and stuff like that. So for those, we normally test the logo and stuff like that on a piece of leather in advance. And then I'll take a picture like next to the shoe so they can see exactly how to look. And then once that approved, we get to the sneaker making. But yeah, I mean, it hasn't been too hard. The only thing I would say that has been more challenging, if they don't give me the color code, is if they send me a screenshot, say it's of a purple. Well, the purple on your phone is going to look different than the purple in real life. So I may match it to the purple on my phone, but then when they get it, it's not the same purple, right? So that's why those color codes are so important. Yeah.
Even, and I find the same thing. With exhibits and graphics, we're always looking for the specific, whether it's a Pantone number or whatever the client has for their official number matching, because not just the phones, but every monitor screen is different, right? So it's important to have the true color number.
Yeah.
So you were talking a little bit before about how you first got started, and then also some of your online interactions with Etsy and how that kind of kicked you off. What has been more of the recent, like, talk a little bit about your interaction and journey with like TikTok, and I don't know, see TikTok and Instagram, like what's that been like for you?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely where I've gotten a lot of my kind of early success, and a couple of businesses through there, but most of the businesses come from LinkedIn and such. But TikTok, honestly, it's great for views and like getting people interacting with the brand. But the conversion's not really on TikTok, so I don't really make many sales, even though I have millions of views on TikTok. Instagram's kind of that happy medium between LinkedIn and TikTok, because you kind of have a wider generation of people. So we've gotten millions of views on there, and they've converted pretty well. But yeah, I think LinkedIn probably is the highest converting, to fewer people, which has been nice. It's also just like I've noticed, I wasn't on LinkedIn until a year ago. I'm super happy I joined, because the people there are just like so much more friendly, and actually when they connect with you, want to have a relationship with you. Whereas Instagram, you could get 200 people that follow you that day, but it doesn't really mean anything other than they like the video or something like that. So yeah.
Yeah, so Instagram's more like a one-sided relationship, where TikTok feels like you're actually connecting with your audience.
LinkedIn, yeah.
LinkedIn.
TikTok is very much, I don't know.
I thought.
We're older. We don't. TikTok is like that. My kids are on TikTok. I don't know.
Yeah.
Can you share with us some examples of sneakers that you've done in the world of corporate or just event gifting?
Yeah, we've done a couple of them for corporate gifting. We did a bunch for Ibotta, and that was actually pretty cool, because that was our first kind of really big order, and they gifted all their employees a pair, and they were like hot pink and black with the cartoon effect. And then they also sponsored the Denver Nuggets, so I got to make pairs for the whole coaching staff of the Denver Nuggets. And that was pretty cool, because they wanted the Denver Nuggets logo, and then kind of like the collaboration X with their logo. And yeah, I actually heard from the coaching staff on that one. They were super grateful. They just thought it was, a great gift to receive. So that was super fun. And then, yeah, we've got.
I mean, you're a basketball fan, so they fly you out to Denver for a game, or hanging out with the Joker, or anything fun like that?
That would have been great. Unfortunately, no. I did get a jersey that they sent me, though, so that was really cool. And I'm already planning. I kind of want to make it into a shoe or do something with it. But yeah, and then as far as like trade shows and stuff like that, we've gotten a couple companies, order them for all of their employees. They go to the trade shows. I think we did some for Seamless AI. And they said that, they pretty much loved it. I think their plan is to get them for every trade show that they go to from here. And then they also use them for like internal gifts. I think once an employee's been there for like 10 years or so, they gift them a pair.
Nice.
So that's been really fun. And then recently we did some for 1031 specialists, and those were cool because they were bright yellow. So they just really popped on the trade show floor. And, I think it's super cool because maybe it's just me because I'm into shoes, but shoes are like the first thing I notice when I meet somebody. And a lot of time, when you're walking down the street, you're not really looking at everybody's eyes. You're kind of seeing their shoes as you go. So if you see, bright yellow shoes, you're kind of like, oh, what's that about? And then if you look over and you see a bunch of people with bright yellow shoes, you're like, what? you know, it's a good conversation starter, and they're going to remember you as the guy with the cool shoes. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't disagree at all. As a matter of fact, even though they weren't custom shoes, I will notice that as well. One of my clients in particular, Easy Cater, their color palette is kind of a Kelly green, is one of the really striking colors, and all of the people who work in the space wear like a Kelly green and white Air Nikes. So even though they're not a fully customized shoe, like you're saying, like the fact that all of a sudden everybody's wearing, they're fairly distinctive to begin with, and then everybody's wearing them regardless of what they're wearing on top. It's like, it's kind of this magnetic kind of a draw, which is just really kind of cool.
Yeah.
I want to circle back, if I could, to, you know, how you've grown business through the use of the social media piece. And I want to kind of tie it into how we have grown and thought about and think about creating content for, you know, at trade shows and for trade shows. So not only using the content that we're building as like a pre-show piece where we're sending it out ahead of time, getting people interested, using it as kind of like an invitational piece, like, hey, we're working on some cool stuff, you're going to want to come to the show. But then, you know, showing up and being prepared to capture the content on site, whether we're flipping it really quickly and doing some quick edits and getting it out same day, and making sure everybody, you know, in our kind of ICP realm knows kind of who we're broadcasting to, like, hey, you're going to want to come down, exciting things on the trade show floor. Or if we're using it kind of post show, you know, capturing that content, using it as a recap piece. So what you've done with kind of doing those ASMR videos and those just kind of capturing kind of your production process is kind of, it's interesting, right? People, the craftsmanship aspect, kind of a peek behind the curtain of how you're actually building these things. I feel like there's a huge similarity there in the way that you've kind of built your business and how we've begun only in the last couple of years, I think, to kind of use content in that way.
Yeah. And, you know, I think it's interesting that like that's such a huge part of it, because people love to see the finished product. But like on my end, I've noticed the videos that normally do the best don't actually show the finished product there, because it kind of draws them in, right? And then they either interact like, oh, I can't wait to see the finished product, or, you know, they're just interested and they like the like craftsmanship behind it and stuff like that. And, you know, it's just also the fact that like some of these videos reach millions of people, and it puts eyes on the brand that may not have seen them before. Because I think also, like, you know, businesses' social media a lot of the time get really stale, because unless you're actively involved with the company, like a lot of other people kind of don't care too much about what's going on, or they just don't understand what's going on. So when something like this draws them in, then they're kind of like, oh, what is, you know, this company about? And it gets them interested not only in the shoes, but like, oh, well, why are they making shoes? And then they kind of look into their company. So, yeah.
It's interesting that, like, say we were going to wear these for our team at like the exhibitor show, right?
Yep.
That would be interesting all of its own volition. But then the whole sort of like accidental advertisement when you're then posting the creation of it on TikTok and LinkedIn and Instagram. It's just interesting the huge audience, like to your point, Caleb, that like is reached by people who would never hear of us necessarily,
right?
Because that's like millions of people. So
right,
yeah.
Well, from a marketing standpoint, right, we deal with event marketers, but they are first and foremost, they are marketers, right? So at the end of the day, what are we trying to do? We're trying to garnish attention, stand out from the noise, and do things that are maybe a little bit outside the box in order to attract attention to our brand, our message, our product, or our service or offering, whatever that may be. So although, you know, BlueHive and the tool and the event marketers toolbox don't have anything to do with shoes, this is a perfect vehicle to kind of create that type of attention that you're talking about.
Right. Yeah.
We did. This reminds me. So Dana, speaking of Exhibitor Live, is one of the shows that we do. A couple months back, it was down in San Antonio, and you and your creative team designed a wonderful activation engagement within our booth. And at the end of the day, after somebody went through the process, they put their head up into this learning, kind of a cavern, and they saw videos and they heard sound and they came down and they interacted with some pieces. People went through that process. We kind of made them earn it a little bit. At that point, they were allowed to put their name into a hat. And the drawing was these beautiful custom made hats that you had sourced through Etsy, I believe.
Actually through Etsy, because they were high end hats. So they were definitely like, a premium gift. And they didn't have like huge branding on them. They were really meant to as a true genuine gift for someone to wear without like our logo giant, could have our logo on the inside, more subtle,
Right.
classy, but it was beautiful because they were handmade. So some of them, a couple of them that were like, they burned in, almost not like with a Dremel, but like burnt in, like you'd be burning leather, but these were more like a suede felt kind of material. Yeah. And then the other one looked, which was also handmade, felt more like the design was more of a print into like kind of the felt material. And they both had sort of a nature hive bee theme to it. But it was definitely classy and not just overly corporate. So like I said, true gift for clients to be able to have after the experience.
Well, whether it's us or somebody's maybe watching this or listening to the podcast after the fact, like creating custom shoes, maybe having a pair on site and asking people or using this as a draw, like, hey, enter to win. Mm-hmm. And you're going to win. And give them maybe some choice. Yeah. Obviously, what's your size?
Narrow down a little bit.
But here's the parameter. You can choose from 3 or 4 different, brand sneakers and 3 or 4, maybe 2 or 3 different designs or whatever the case may be. But I see kind of what Caleb, what you're doing and creating this really super personalized, very cool thing, which becomes such a novelty. Like I know you said that this is that these are quite durable and paints on there will hold up. But I'm like petrified to wear these things and put them up because I want them to last and look like this for so long. But I mean, who knows where, an idea might go like for that to be kind of create the blend of that personalized custom corporate gift but pull it into kind of the trade show and event world and use that as a really high end giveaway.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing that we had a company do recently is they ordered, I think, 4 pairs of custom shoes, and then they did it like a Where's Waldo kind of thing at the trade show. And so they had this contest that if you found all 4 of them and talked to them, then you'd be entered in to win a pair of custom shoes. So that was really fun too. And they all dressed up, with the striped shirts and everything. Yeah.
What kind of shoes does Waldo wear? Were they were equally branded?
Those were, they were like light blue. It was for Medcart, so it matched their kind of blue logoing and stuff. And then they just had like a stethoscope on there and like a heartbeat as well. So they didn't really match the Where's Waldo theme, but
but they hit the corporate brand brief.
They did,
which is important.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell us a little bit about. So you're kind of bridging the gap between kind of this B2C world and B2B world now, right? And it's maybe kind of came about a little in happenstance based on your chance meeting with Matt Williams. But you've seen kind of, selling to, the end consumer, and you've also seen like selling through customers. I think they both have advantages and disadvantages, but any kind of insights from you as kind of the founder of this company, like identifying trends that things that are working, right? ASMR videos are working in the B2C world and then pulling them and bringing them into a B2B play. I don't know, some thoughts around that if you could.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting because like going off the trends and stuff like that, obviously the trends tend to start in the B2C world. And so, being actively engaged on social media more in the B2C world, you kind of see those trends before they get to the B2B world. So you can kind of be more of an innovator in the B2B, and you could say like, hey, people are liking this right now. So, I suggest you adopt that. So like with Matt Williams and stuff, that was kind of what we did for a while because he ran LinkedIn and stuff like that. And I would be making the content for Instagram and he'd be like, oh, this is going to perform really well on LinkedIn. And he'd take it to LinkedIn and sure enough, it performed well. But it was almost like a testing platform as well on the B2C. And typically, you see more of the creative side on the B2C. But I've been surprised, honestly, with a lot of the B2B, I guess, creative freedom they've given me recently. And I think it's because like a lot of businesses want to kind of infuse art more into the business now, because it adds, that level of flavor to it. And it's just, more fun, making the business lighthearted, giving employees something to work for. And yeah.
Yeah, those are really good insights. And I think, I have worked with the Fist Bump group for a few years on coaching on LinkedIn, and just kind of thinking about and not forgetting that even though we're business people, we're people first, right? So the same things that people are responding to on TikTok and Instagram are still interesting to those folks who are in business, whether or not we're going to give it the time and watch the videos during our workday when we're on a, quote unquote professional platform or not. I think that there's a lot of, back and forth there, but at the end of the day, like, it kind of exposes that, as you mentioned, kind of a fun, creative side. And at the same time, humanity, right? Like this is interesting to me as a person who's interested in all sorts of things, including business and art and marketing.
Yeah.
Kind of ties all that stuff together pretty good.
Are there any limitations, Caleb, to the types of shoes that you can do and customize?
Honestly, I don't think so. I have yet to kind of come across a shoe that we can't customize in some way. I mean, certain shoes are more difficult than others, but we've been asked to do like cowboy boots, work boots, kind of just all types. I think obviously it's easier if the shoe has more room to work. So maybe not high heels as much, because they don't have as much shoe to them. But we could probably still put like a logo or a name on them. So
you've done cowboy boots and work boots?
Yeah, and I've actually I've gotten into recently tattooing leather, because it's also just more durable and it gives it kind of a cooler effect. And I find that on like cowboy boots and stuff like that, leather's thicker, that works really well.
Yeah, nice. I'm not a handbag person, but I know some people are as passionate about handbags as you are, and some other people about shoes and sneakers. So have you been asked to do a high-end handbag, customize something like that, a leather bag?
Yeah, I did a bag, I think a couple months ago. It was a Louis Vuitton backpack. And that was definitely very stressful because, the backpack was $2,000. And it was a friend of mine, so that made it like a little bit better. But he was like, yeah, I'm just giving it as a gift to somebody, and this is what I want. And he gave me like full creative freedom, which also was a little stressful. But other than that, though, I haven't done too many bags, but it's the same. It's honestly probably easier because they're flatter.
Yeah. That's awesome.
What about the material itself? So I think when we first started engaging, you did have some suggestions. Like obviously there's canvas sneakers, there's a lot more of these recycled material sneakers, which is great, right? Companies are recycling a bunch of crap from the ocean and turning it into a shoe, which is amazing. But they present some challenges with regards to getting paint to stick, or it's an open weave, right? So you can't quite get the tight lines and stuff like that if you were to paint on them.
Yeah, and that's kind of interesting because I think I steer most people clear of canvas shoes. And it's not because we can't work on them, but if you want kind of the smoother lines for the logo and stuff like that, it's a lot harder to get on canvas because it bleeds. I mean, there are ways to prevent that, but it's just a bit of a pain. And some shoes,
it's hard to make a straight and crispy line on a textured surface.
Yeah, exactly. And some of the shoes that are kind of made with different types of, maybe fake leather or such, part of the process is you prep the leather, so you rub it down with acetone. And I've noticed on some of the like recycled leather, it'll like almost rub the leather off. And so I try to steer clear of those as well. You just can't rub as hard, I guess, but yeah.
Awesome. So where do you see this business going? Obviously, there's only so many hours a day that you can do all the things that you're doing as kind of the chief cook and bottle washer, right? You're doing most of the production. Is this a goal to try to like scale your company to get to have you focus more on the front end and leading, doing the sales and the marketing and having other people produce for you? Or what are some thoughts on how you're going to grow?
Yeah, so I think like the future pretty much kind of came from a lot of frustrating emails with companies back and forth, because there's been a lot of companies that are really interested and they're like, hey, we want 100 pairs, and I quote them, and the price tag is just way too high, right? Because they are all made by hand, so they take each one takes hours. So I have developed my own like Discomfort branded shoe, in which companies will be able to customize them the same way they could before. So the fades, the cartoon effect, whatever, and they'll be built up that way, right? So that way I can offer a cheaper price for those companies that want, 100 plus pairs. And I think that's kind of where the future is on that side of things. I mean, I'm definitely going to keep doing the personalized sneakers just because that's fun. And, especially for like one-of-one gifts and stuff like that, it's really the way to go. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm planning on taking it.
Great. So you and I were talking yesterday or day before about also another kind of sideline of your business. So you were a wrestler.
Yeah.
I didn't know that you broke your back. That's pretty scary stuff. Are you like much fully recovered from that?
Yeah. I mean, I fractured my spine in 3 places doing it. So,
okay.
And I was training for state at the time, and basically I recovered enough to wrestle at state, but the doctor was like, well, I mean, it's definitely going to hurt, but it's not going to get any worse if you do. And it's kind of stayed in that state of like hurting, but not getting any worse. So like, I definitely have bad days and good days, but I'm still like able to be active and stuff like that, which has been great. But yeah.
So you have a side of your business also that specifically focuses on wrestling shoes, and are those customized, or you're just more of like you're kind of an outlet to sell quantity to schools and stuff? How does that part of the business work?
Yeah, so that's kind of just its own thing, right? I actually, when I named the company Discomfort, it was meant to be a weightlifting shoe. And so I went through and I developed a weightlifting shoe and stuff, and it just didn't really take off. I didn't really find my niche until I started making wrestling shoes. And that was kind of funny because I made a weightlifting shoe and everybody in my comments was like, oh, those look like wrestling shoes. You should make wrestling shoes. And so I did. I just turned it into a wrestling shoe and it kind of took off from there. And that's been going great. It's not customized, so I just design the shoe, get them made same way any other brand would get their shoes made. I have like customized them just, for fun and stuff like that, but I don't sell the customized shoes. It's just more for promotional. I think also that's a good way of like showing that, customization videos work to sell product, because I did a video tattooing wrestling shoes, and I think the video did wasn't crazy. It was like 400,000 views, but the conversions of people that went and bought wrestling shoes based on that video was like very much worth it. And so, it's been fun to kind of incorporate both businesses back into each other. And yeah.
That's awesome.
Wow. I mean, you're quite the young entrepreneur extraordinaire, just kind of figuring out where there's a need in the market, and you go kind of fill it within the realm that you're comfortable in.
Yeah, it's been fun. And I think also, my wife will be scrolling on TikTok and stuff, and I watch with her, and I'll kind of note okay, why did she stop on that video? What made her stop the scroll? And then I kind of make a mental note so I can use that later. So I think just kind of thinking like that as you go through social media has been super helpful.
I think that's brilliant. Always paying attention to user experience is always going to make, your own things you provide even better. Right. We do the same thing when we're trying to come up with the exhibit. It's not just a structure, where we're thinking about how the end user is going to interact and what they're going to stop and engage with.
Yeah.
So are we doing our 3 things?
We are going to do our 3 things. So we had some technological issues coming in. So I hope you're prepared for it, Caleb. We didn't really get to this, but we're hoping that you can leave our listeners with like kind of 3 actionable takeaways or 3 little nuggets that maybe you've either learned in doing this or seen other people benefit from, these cool custom shoes that you've made.
Yeah, I think like my first one would just be thinking differently. So, people remember things that are different, obviously, and maybe something they haven't thought of. So an example for that was like not too long ago, I made some shoes out of aluminum cans. So I sewed like the cans onto the.
I saw that video.
Yeah, and that video I think it got 26 million views. And it was just kind of a thought one day where I was like, nobody's done this. So I'll try it out, So I think that for businesses especially is huge, especially for bigger businesses that maybe have stuck to the same thing, just kind of think outside the box, try different stuff. So that would be my first probably takeaway. Second one is have fun with it. Don't take it too seriously, especially, with the shoes. It's kind of just bringing fun back into it. People like shoes. So that would be probably number 2. And then number 3, kind of like what I was talking about, making an impression, right? So people remember your shoes you're wearing, or, maybe it's some other type of corporate swag, but just like either wearing something or doing something that's going to make that person remember you, whether it's like, oh, you're the guy with the bright yellow shoes, or I don't know, maybe you're wearing like a hot pink hoodie or something like that, right? They're going to remember that as opposed to the guy with the black polo with the company logo, So yeah, that'd probably be number 3.
There you go. Well, that's a nice job kind of putting a bow on all of that. We really appreciate your time today. Once again, another kind of quick peek at these awesome shoes, everybody. Reach out. How can people find Caleb and order up their own shoes?
Yeah, so you can go to my website. It is www.discomfort, that's without any of the vowels, .org. So, or you could just search Discomfort Custom Shoes, and I'll be the first link that'll pop up. So,
all right. So DSCMFRT.
Yep.
Right on. Okay, great. So we can find you either on like Instagram, certainly here on LinkedIn, at your website. And I tell you, creativity and craftsmanship and a great guy to work with. So nothing but, applause coming from the Toolbox over here. Caleb, thank you so much for helping us create these amazing shoes and also coming on and sharing all of these great stories with everybody.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me, and thanks for reaching out to get a pair of shoes made. It was super fun. Love the colors you guys picked, and yeah.
All right, fantastic. All right, everybody. Well, have yourself a great rest of your day and rest of your week, and tune into the Toolbox every Thursday at noontime Eastern.